Hey guys, Paul McLean here. Welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And this is an exciting month. This is Life Insurance Awareness Month, September. In fact, this is typically the biggest month. And if you've been in the insurance industry for a minute, or if you're on the outside looking in, I got something for you. This is the biggest quarter of the entire year, is the fourth quarter. And I do believe September kind of leads us into that, where the awareness is heightened on the importance of what we do. And I think a lot of agents get it to go from their head where it makes sense, like, yeah, you should have life insurance, you die, lose the income, or they really kind of either go back and look at what they've experienced, or maybe they've experienced it with somebody, a client or what have you, and they understand, like, man, this makes a massive difference. And when it goes from your head to your heart, man, that's when things start to transform and change. And so, guys, I got two very special guests. I'm excited to say that they're in the studio, baby. I get to touch them. Jordan Lowry, good to see you, bro.
What's going on, my man?
Now, Sam, the fact is, God didn't bless me with height or stretch and reach, so I cannot. Maybe we can. Let's give it a shot. Sam, good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, dude.
Good to have you in, brother. And guys, these are two guys that have gone out there and they've served a lot of families. And the thing I love about this business is when somebody's like, man, that person, look at what they wrote for the month, right? And they used to kind of, we did it more before than we do now. They look at the commissions behind that, and it's significant. You're like, dude, that's some good money. But now we've really kind of switched it, which I really enjoy in talking about these families helped, because the reality is the agent that makes the most income, they help the most families, right? Those go hand in hand. And I really want to kind of have you guys share a little bit about your stories, whether it's something that you've dealt with personally or sitting with clients, and how that's made a big difference, because this is that important. Now, for me, Jordan, like, I was 19 when I got started. So I had not experienced mortality. Like, I know we're going to talk to Sam, and he was 19 as well, and he did experience that, and he's been able to use that, I guarantee, to make a massive difference and be able to challenge clients appropriately, to be able to be bold and direct and get them to make a choice that they maybe normally wouldn't make if it wasn't you sitting with them, Sam, right? Because you have that testimony. But for me, I had to, and I want to just tee it up with this so everybody watching today, you understand the importance of, like, leaning in and taking notes. Like, you can use somebody else's story. So for me, when things really changed and I got really good in the home, it wasn't like I had all this knowing, like, dude, I just know how to overcome every objection, or I just know all about the products, or I know how to quote in 2.2 seconds. I could pull that. Like, it wasn't that. It was, I just was like, God, this is so important, man. Like, I would hear testimonies from different people on podcasts, and I would write them down. So I had them in my notes. If it was a younger client, I had a very specific story that I had heard from somebody else written down, and before I'd go into the client's house, I would read that. And no kidding, it was like clockwork. And I would even read, and this maybe dates me, but I remember reading the obituary before I'd make phone calls sometimes to get my mind around the fact that this is real.
Wow.
Because I didn't have, hadn't experienced it. Now, once I started going through and helping clients, I quickly had some stories to tell, because I had clients that had passed, right? And I got to deliver the check and stuff like that. But these stories, guys, if you're like, man, I'm struggling with getting people to show up, I'm struggling with closing, I'm telling you, if you've got this deep conviction that what you do makes such a big difference, you'll stand up for the clients. You'll step into conflict. You'll step into uncomfortability. And guys, that's where my best clients are. When I look back, are the ones that were like, I want to think about it, how to go back and forth, but I was able to stand in that uncomfortable silence, maybe even asking the question, letting them not really just, sit there think like, man, what would happen? All those things started to take shape, and I started to do what I knew to do from listening to podcasts when I really believed that this was so important. And so I want everybody to understand that this isn't, you can say, well, there's no sales tips. I know there'll be some sales tips. Trust me, as we go through it. But write down these stories that you hear, because this is a story that when you're sitting with the client, the best way to kind of get people to think on your thought process is tell them a story where they can put themselves in it. And you take something that's not tangible and you make it as tangible as it possibly could be, where they almost can, like, feel it and see it. And it's like, wow, they experience it. Now they're willing to make movements, because emotion will lead to motion. And so, Jordan, I want to start with you, bro. I know that you've been in this game for how many years now?
4 years.
4 years?
4 years total. 3.5 years here with Family First Life. I was in the industry for 6 months before, just learning the ropes of the industry, got my license. Thank everything, that I got my license, because the entire world has changed.
Yeah, man, your business is absolutely blowing up. The amount of families that you guys are serving a month. How many families did you guys serve last month?
A little over 5,000.
5,000, dude. Think about that. Like, that's so exciting, dude. 5,000 families that have protection today would not have had protection if somebody in your organization didn't step in their door or hop on the phone and make that deal happen, right? And so that's pretty powerful. And thank God that you did find it, because it benefited FFL for what you've done, and also benefited you because I know you had 582 jobs prior to finding FFL.
That's
so
right. That's
we have
right.
more time to go into your story, dude. It's one of the most inspirational. So I love it, dude. So, but talk about, like, what story kind of helped you realize the importance and the significance of life insurance, and kind of go through that story if you could, and articulate what took place and why it matters.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Paul. I really do appreciate it, and I can tell you how many things I've learned from you. And the truth is if you're not taking notes, you're missing out, right? Because you might hear one or two things that you can use, but the things that you write down are the things you're going to get better. And you always said, facts tell and stories sell. Facts tell and stories sell. And I used to use Brian. Thank God Brian, trained as much as he did, put things on YouTube as much as he did. I would use Aunt Tina in the driver's license story my first few months in the business, because I hadn't lost anyone. I was always very open about sharing. The reason I got in this industry is my grandmother had a stroke, right? So my grandpa had a stroke. She takes care of him. She's doing all this. Well, she has a stroke. He passes away. Now she can't talk. And the company that I'm at the time won't cover her with life insurance, right? And I'm just so passionate about life insurance that we can shop around for clients, because every single grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle and mom and dad, every single one of them is different. And so that's where I started was Aunt Tina, not making it home. She had work coverage. She didn't make it home. And the work coverage, obviously, she got cancer, she got sick, short-term disability, long-term disability, it expired, right? But 4 months into working with FFL, okay? So I hadn't even been in the industry for a year. I was on a road trip. I was traveling. I was up in Illinois. I was working for 4 days. I would go there for 4 days. I was up there. I booked an appointment on Monday night for Thursday night. It was raining when I showed up on Thursday night. I got to the door. I knocked on the door. I had 2 trainees in the car. Knocked on the door. And it took a little bit longer than I would imagine. So I knocked again. And a young girl, about 17 years old, answers the door. Tears. Just I can't even explain it. I was almost like ready to help her. Like, I was like, what do you need? Are you okay? Is something going on? And she said, my dad passed away last night. Wow. My mom is at the funeral home. My mom's taking care of everything, and all this stuff. And I asked a question that was probably maybe not the most, I was like, was he healthy? Was he sick? No, he was healthy. He had a heart attack in his sleep. And from that day on, I was like, I was a college, not athlete, but college golfer, right? And so in golf, it's very big to visualize everything you do, every shot you hit, every putt, everything you do, you visualize.
Did you just diminish the athleticism it takes to be a golfer?
Yeah, he did.
But I did. But hear me on this. This is the first thing that I found where that visualization, where when I would talk to a new agent, I would go, Paul, before you go in that house, I want you to take 15 seconds, pray or do whatever you believe in, but I want you to visualize that you're the last person who ever passed that state exam, that life insurance exam, who's going to call this person. You're the last person who passed the test who's going to call them. And if you don't, they're going to die. And getting yourself in that mindset of visualizing them. And because then there's nothing bad that you can say to a client. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong that you can push them. As long as you don't lose your insurance license, as long as you're not doing anything unethical or immoral, there's literally nothing you can say in an amount you can't push and feel good about it.
Yeah, I think, dude, that's one of the most powerful habits somebody can pick up today if they want to serve more families this week is do that little that quick pause and visualize and almost like try to convince yourself that maybe God told you in a dream, like, they're going to make it home tomorrow. They don't know it, so they're not going to be like so easily to move, but you know it. And you've got to have that conversation with them. And when I started to get my mind around on that, it was easier for me to take my eyes off of me and put them on them. And when my eyes were on them, I could truly serve. And that's difficult. I've had agents say, well, Paul, man, it's tough, dude. I got to get paid, dog. Like, I got bills to pay. I'm like, I understand. But if you're only thinking about yourself, it's going to be that much harder for you to pay those bills, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And there's things you can do to increase your caring. You know what I mean? It's not just something you're born with. That person's just born with the extra care factor. No, man. Like, they intentionally think about other people. And whatever you focus on expands. So if I'm really focusing on something that I don't know will or won't happen, because you can't tell the difference between what you imagine and what you experience. So I'm trying to, in my mind, imagine in such a way where my body feels like I'm experiencing it. So now when I go in there and it gets tough, I don't fly, man. I stand up and fight for that client, right? And it's such a big deal. So if you're doing virtual sales, if you're calling, you don't know. You know how many times there's agents that have that same story, Jordan? I mean, you stick around long enough, call enough leads, you're going to eventually call a lead that says yesterday or last week. I've had it happen. Yeah. And that's tough, man.
I always wondered, what if I would have booked the appointment for Tuesday instead of Thursday?
Exactly, dude.
And I was like, how weak was I that I set it out 72 hours or whatever, and that was when it really changed for me. That's when it made it real. It was pouring down rain. That girl was going through the worst day of her life. And I thought, dude, this is so much bigger than just money. It's so much bigger. And so, and many other stories. But ultimately, if you focus on them and what they're going to go through, and in depth, like, tell me a little bit more. I know she's working. Tell me a little bit more about what that's going to look like, and get them to explain it in detail. I know it's not going to be good. What does not good look like for Brittany? What does not good look like for her? Tell me more, and dig down and really solidify those sales too. Not just helping more families, but higher retention as well.
I love that, dude. The depth of the questions is everything. There's certain things that we need to be surface on when it comes to the in-home, right? But there's some things that we got to drive depth on. I always try to say they surface on the things that I'm trying to push aside, like, hey, just grab avoided checks, no big deal, those kind of things. But the financial inventory, when you paint the picture and then you ask those questions, you got to ask those questions and get them to live in it, or else it doesn't become real. And people don't move on things that are fake. In their mind, it's not became real. So those questions are such a big deal. And these are questions that, in order to help more families, you got to build better value, and you got to be more assumptive. Well, man, as you go through those and you're hearing their responses, because guess what? Great questions get great answers. And those are great questions as far as value building. And so their answers, you can see it on them, right? You can see the emotion change where they're like, God, like, this is tough to think about. And I was really not wanting to go there. But, like, I think we'd end up losing the house, and I'd probably have to move across state and move in here and put, live with my kids. Is that what you'd want? Well, no, I wouldn't want that. And you see that change. Well, now, man, it's even easier to be that much more assumptive at the end, because, like, what are we talking about? And I think the two things that, for me, I would always remind myself of this, Sam, is like, life's, has some sucky things about it, dude. Like, everybody has stuff that they go through that is just not, it's not fortunate, man. And some different than others, and some, have gone through maybe some of the hardest parts of their life, and some of the harder parts of their life are before them still, like. But the two things that I think are very difficult to go through, the hardest things would be losing somebody that you love. Like, I could imagine losing my spouse and with our kids. Like, if I sat there and visualized it, I could almost cry thinking about it. Like, what that would look like going home. But then also financially, like, and for anybody watching this, maybe you've experienced that part or the other, where financially, like, dude, there's more days in the month and there's money in my bank account, man. Like, if we can shrink the month to 18 days, I would be okay. It's a whole 30 days and 28 days messing me up. But when you're like, dude, I need more money, and when you're like, don't know how to pay the bills and take care of your family, which is why FFL is also so unbelievable, because we give an opportunity to fill that need as well, right? But when you're dealing with both of those at the exact same time, but most of us don't get it when we go sit in a client's house, because if it's not real to me, how can I make it real for you? If I've not stopped and I've not convicted myself in the fact that this can happen, this will happen, and what's the importance of it, man, I can't sell you unless I'm sold. And you got to sell yourself every day. It's like anything. Like, I don't like broccoli. I got to sell myself every day on the fact that broccoli is good. I love broccoli. I got to sell myself on going to the gym. You got to sell yourself on doing the right things. you got to sell yourself on how important this is before you go in a client's house every time. And it's just important. But Sam, I'd love to have you talk about your story, man. You've been with Family First Life how long now?
About 16 months.
16 months. And I've met a lot of like agents where they just get started their first month, right? I mean, a lot. I've done this 15 years, you know. I still remember meeting you, dude. And I don't know how many people I can say that about. You know, I remember at the first conference in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Arizona, you talking about how you wanted this and how bad, you know, and Sean gave you some lead money, right?
Yeah.
And dude, like, it seemed like then you had it in your heart. And I think as people listen to your story and how you'll communicate about it, they'll understand it. I didn't get it then, but I was just like, dude, I want to just help Sam win. Like, dude, he just seems like such a great guy. And I've gotten to know you, and you are. You know, we went to the gym together a couple times, and you're also, you know, pretty strong mentally and physically. But dude, go ahead and talk about, you know, your story and how that's impacted your ability to serve families with Family First Life and how you've used that to really help others.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, one of the only reasons I'm here is because I was a beneficiary of a life insurance policy. You know, unfortunately, I lost my father when I was 19. He was only 58 years old. He passed away unexpectedly. He got sick, lung cancer, misdiagnosed for a few months, and as soon as we found out how serious his condition was, he passed away exactly a month later. He didn't have any personal life insurance. He had a work policy, and because of what I know now, it shouldn't have paid out, but it did, and we were taken care of. So, you know, it's knowing that, and then hearing about FFL just 16 months ago. A good friend of mine, Troy, used to work here, and he was telling me about the opportunity, and I wasn't interested at first. I was like, nah, man, I don't know if I can do that. And I kind of thought about it and mulled it over for a couple of months, and then I was in a financial position where I was like, dude, I want to learn skill and not, you know, be stuck in the rat race for the rest of my life. So I took a leap, and I remember going through contracting, waiting to get my carrier numbers back, listening to Monday Morning Wake Up, watching phone script training with Jordan Lowry, watching phone script training with Paul McLean, and just hoping that I'd figure a way to work this out. And I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed to be here.
Well, dude, you've been a great example, I think, of really all the attributes it takes to be successful with Family First Life, man. Very coachable, trainable, servant heart. And these are some of the things when you sit back, it's like, man, like anybody can go out there and develop those kind of things, you know, but not everybody does. You know what I mean? And but dude, you've always had this heart to serve and help. And in fact, I called you up. I was like, hey man, I think you'd be really good for this podcast. And I called you like 13 minutes ago. And you're like, yeah, I'll be there. I was like, cool, dude. All right. He's like, I'm dialing, but I'll be there real quick. So the story, like you going through that, and I mean, I'm not trying to like, you know, put my faith out there or anything like that. I know you're a man of faith too, but like I do believe that God will work all things together for good. And that being an event that took place at 19, that's young. You know, you're not, you know, 48 years old and your dad's not 80 where you're like, you know, he lived a long life. Very unexpected. Obviously, I would assume very difficult to walk through that. But being planted in FFL where you can use that story to help others, like have you used that story in communicating with clients?
Dude, all the time. Dude, like God's blessed me with that experience, because now when I go into the homes with the families and the clients, I have this like it's not ethos, but I forget, I'm losing the word, but I just have this empathy with the family if I can connect with them and I can share my story, and it gives me a chance, because I didn't get any therapy when my dad died, and I probably should have, but this has kind of given me a platform and an opportunity to be able to sit down with people and talk about my dad and my experiences.
Wow. That's so good, dude.
That's amazing.
And I think that when you make yourself available to be used, that's when the good is there. Like you were just available, you know, like you got the opportunity to it. You probably didn't know what it was going to look like at the time when you said, yes, I'm going to get my license. And then,
No
that's
idea.
now put you in a position where that one thing that took place where your dad's no longer here, but God's used that unfortunate event that happened to bless so many people. Like, there's going to be people that when they die, there'll be a check delivered that'll change their family's life forever because your story, because the fact that you told your story. Because not everybody buys, we know that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where, I could think of, I don't know if it was 50% of the time where I got to think about it, but I got him to move over on the other side of it, and having stories, and not just telling the story, but like having that story in you, where it's like you just like they can just feel it, man. Because I think that when you look at the fact that we're dealing with clients that have sent in a request for help, they've already identified they need it, right? We're not going out trying to cultivate interest, trying to develop interest, trying to bring it out. Like, it's there. They've said we want help. What they're really looking for is this person that's coming out to help me, do they really like care for me? Can I trust them, right? Do I like them? And what they're looking for is authenticity, somebody that seems real. Because as you know, like in the world today, like you go on Instagram, all these different things, like it's a very, fictitious, kind of world. It just is, there's a lot of masks and, different people are wearing different things, making it seem like it's one way or the other. But when you show up and you're real, you're raw, you're authentic, you're vulnerable, man, that's how you go out there, connect, and make a difference. And guys, by the way, it feels so good to be like that. You know what I mean? And you get to be like that with these families. So for anybody that's on here that's trying to go in and put on this perfect presentation, try to give the best reflection of who they possibly could be. Man, people just want you to be real. They want you to be raw. They want you to be authentic. And that's what's going to move them. And I think that's exactly what you've done, Sam, is you've led with that, See, guys, these are stories that will make a massive difference. If you can remind yourself of it and keep the awareness high. Because I could tell you this much, and I don't know if you guys could relate to this or not, but there's been ebbs and flows when it comes to, let's just say, close ratio. Like if I sit down 10 families, how many I help? And a lot of times, man, that's pretty much tied to how convicted I am and how important this is. Because I could be easy to get caught up in just the numbers. I got more appointments. I got to run this. I got to hit this. This is my goal. This is what's going on. And if we can continue to keep awareness high, good things will happen. But when awareness drops, it's devastating because those clients are not going to be helped because we're not convicted at the level we need to be to bring that conviction to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure.
I think about like, I don't even know if this is applicable. It's popped in my head. Now I feel like I got to say it. I remember when my kids went on a home study, right? They would do those Zooms with the teacher, like and my wife, she was like talking about like doing a self breast examination. You know what I mean? Because she's like, she had heard somebody, got breast cancer, and so I got back from work. She's like, babe, you won't believe what happened. I said, what? She said, like, I was just in the living room and I was just like, thinking like, do I have any lumps or anything? And she's like, I looked over and I realized, Penelope's computer was on. It was staring at me. She was in kindergarten. So I was like, that's great, babe. That's great. She's like, this is what happens when you're not aware. Bad things happen. You gotta be aware. It's like, hopefully you're not in prison now for, sexual harassment on, kindergartners. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, honest to God, true story. Like the next day, I got some new boxers, right? And for whatever reason, they came like really, really long, and they look like biker shorts. The girls wear those biker shorts. I'm like, what are these, man? I don't even like these things. I feel just weird wearing them. And so I went downstairs to act like I was going to go to work in them. And I showed my wife, I was like, you like these new shorts I got? And they're boxers. And I look over, Zoom was on. My wife's like, the Zoom's on. They're looking at you. I was like, oh, shoot. Went upstairs, But I just feel like, man, if we're unaware of like what's taking place, the importance we have, man, we get caught looking pretty dumb. Because these clients need us to be aware of the importance of it, to communicate the importance of it. And it's a big deal. Is there anything that Jordan, you do that kind of helps you when it comes to understanding and really having it in your heart when you go out there and serve these clients?
The number one thing that I do is I visualize them, and then when I'm in there, if I don't know or if I don't know something, right, I just simply tell them that I don't know, but I'm going to find the answer. You know, I never want to make myself feel like a fool that I know so much or this or that. If I don't know, I say, you know, I'm 99% sure, but I want to make sure you're not wasting anything. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to call senior underwriter, right? But if you don't know, it's okay to not know everything. Don't try to be a know-it-all. Just say you're 90% sure, but you don't want to waste any resources, and just give you 1 second.
Dude, that's a big deal, bro. Big deal. Because people on here right now, they're thinking like, I don't want to look stupid. Dude, I use that even when I was like, Andrew did that like 8 years in, and he'd call me up, and my wife was like, why is Andrew still acting like he needs help in the home? Right. I was like, I think I'm a part of his sales process, you know?
Right.
But he'd call, you know, and the same thing, like, hey, I'm about 99% sure, but I would never want to give you an answer to that I'm not 100% sure. So give me a second. Now they're like, wow, this guy.
He really cares that we get the right plan, right? And so whatever you do, you have to be all in it. And so when it's closing, or you've gotten those objections, like you said, like, you have to be the one who's going to not take no for an answer. And that's from the client, that's from the lead, that's from the insurance company when they pass away. Like, look, I'm adamant, and we decided you need this. You know you need it. Which one do you know you need? Because I'm going to be the one there to stomp on the insurance company's throat to get your wife a check. So which one do you want to start with? And that they know that you're literally not taking no for an answer. And it can be the same when an agent works with you. It can be the same to a client. And you know, you don't have to be the smartest person if you just share a little bit about you. So when Sam's sharing about his family or his dad, or that his dad had cancer and was on short-term disability, thank God that the work policy paid. See, when he shares that 10% about him or 20% about him, it allows the client to share 90 to 100% about themselves, because he was vulnerable. If you don't share anything, you can't get anything. So you have to open up you have to open up a little to receive all the information. That's
so good, man. It's like you got to be more interested than interesting.
Yes.
Like, I'm interested in you, but let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then they're going to open up. That's beautiful, dude. I love
vulnerable.
That. Sam, what about you? What are some things that you believe in the home that you say or you do that really kind of in the client's mind, they can really see the importance. They can see the need and how essential this protection is. What are some things you do, you know, with the client?
Dude, I mean, I learned this from a mistake I had made when I was brand new, running my first couple of appointments. You know, I sat on an in-home, and, you know, the husband and wife wanted to think about the coverage, and I didn't have enough courage or backbone to stand up for them and to not let them think about it. And I, you know, rescheduled, say, hey, you know, I'll give you a week to think about it. I'll be back out here next week. And, you know, I called him back next week and tried to book another appointment with him. And in the meantime, the husband received a stroke and was in the hospital. And I said, oh, okay, no problem, Mary. So sorry about that. You know, I'll reschedule when he's out of the hospital. And that's one of the leads that just got put aside. Couple weeks go by, follow up again. Bob, unfortunately, passed away from the stroke, and they had to sell the house. And Mary was pretty upset at me for calling back. You know, so that's one thing. When I was brand new, that when that happened to me, dude, I bawled my eyes out because I felt so terrible that happened to him. I felt responsible. So I think one thing that I think would help people is you have to be convicted that this is a need, and it is. It's not. It's not like purchasing a material item, you know. So don't feel like you're pressuring people or you're a salesman. You're not. We're underwriters. We take orders, right? So I think that's one thing that I've carried with me is just I have this conviction of this isn't something you can think about anymore. Like there's nothing, absolutely nothing to think about when it comes to getting coverage.
I love that, man. That's so good, dude. And I think the last thing I'd say as we wrap this up is like being very specific and having details in the stories that you communicate. Like if a client's giving you pushback or whatever, just say, hey, listen, you mind if I tell you a story real quick? No, go ahead. And then open up that story and don't be surface with it, right? The more specific you're going to be with the story, the more emotion and movement that's going to come from that. Like I'll give you an example. The client that did it for me was Paul and Shoshana in Yucca Valley. I was maybe 6 months into the business, and I had my daughter Payne at the time was like a year or so. I go to the client's house, and in fact, let me tell you this way. I go to the client's house, I sit down, write them a policy up, and get the policy in place, send it in. 2 weeks later, she calls me crying hysterically, and Paul had passed away. Okay, so you hear I just said that story. It kind of like made sense, but it didn't do a whole lot. But when I say, listen, I sat with the client, 6 months after I had my license. I didn't understand how important this was. But when I went over there, Paul and Shoshana, I opened the door. They had like the DirecTV guy there. They had the alarm guy there. It was like they just bought their house. And so I remember sitting in there and saying, hey, guys, I know you got a lot going on, but this is really important for you. I know it's important for you guys. I feel done right. I'm going to do my best to see what we qualify for. And I got a really big book schedule. Can you guys grab a seat real quick? They said yes. I took charge of the home because I was the most important person in the home, because I wasn't selling them a TV service. I was selling protection when he passes to make sure they're taken care of. So they sit down. I remember Michaela was running by because she was the same age as my daughter, and she was a cute little thing. And so I was talking about my daughter and their daughter. We were connecting, and Shoshana was like 8.5 months pregnant with their second one, right? And I was like, you guys don't waste any time. And so we ended up going through everything. I wrote him a policy up. He's a crane operator, was in the military, got out of the military. He's 30 years old. Shoshana was like 28. And he was working at the crane operating company out in Yucca. And so write him a policy up. This is back before, they would send the policies in the mail. This is going back like 15 years now, right? Yeah. And so I deliver the policy. I go out, and when I deliver the policy, Shoshana had just had the baby. It was like the baby was just there. Like it was like the second day home. And I walk in, I sit down with Paul, Michaela sitting next to him, and he's like, man, this just feels so good knowing that I got this in place. And I remember just feeling like really good. Like this is one of those clients where it's like, man, it just feels so great to help them. And 2.5 weeks later, I get a phone call from Shoshana. I think it's just to check in. She's crying hysterically. The baby's a couple weeks old. And she says Paul was in a crane, hit a power line, jumped out of the power line. The power line hit him, and he was electrocuted to death. He's not here. And I remember how I felt in that moment. Like, dude, this is real. And I remember going out there and delivering that check to her, and knowing that all this stuff that was going on, that was all, uncertain. Like, imagine, her having to tell Michaela that daddy's not coming home. All those things taking place, I couldn't change the emotion behind that. But giving them the check and knowing that she didn't have to get a job, she didn't have to worry about where to live, that the accident and death combined paid off the house and gave her an extra $200,000, like that changed everything. That changed the way the kids could grow up and how they're going to grow up, and the foundation that they have. That the moms, Shoshana's not gone working 2 jobs, and they're not living in an apartment. Like where they live, how they live, where they go to school, all that stuff is forever changed because of that. And that's the story that did it for me. But I wanted to tell that way so you could hear the differences. Mm-hmm. The first time I said it, it didn't do a lot, did it?
No emotion.
But the second, it was the same exact story.
Wow.
The same exact point. The only difference was I gave specifics, ages, what it felt like, who was in the room, where they were at, what it looked like. Spend the time and take an extra minute or two to tell the story when you're sitting with the client. Because just like you felt different the second time I said it, they do too. And you need them to feel that so they can move and make the right choice for their family, right? So, guys, I hope this helped. Phenomenal stuff, guys. I mean, I love talking about it, and I just thank God that we're in this position to do what we do, man. We're not slinging knives, man. We're out there making a big difference, and it's a great feeling. So, guys, hey, thank you for joining today. I appreciate you. Guys, go out there and make it a massive week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this, guys. This could be a video that you say, I got an agent struggling. He needs to know more about product. He needs to know more about how to overcome that objection. No, he needs to know this, because if you care more, you'll do more, and you'll do it with more excellence, and you're going to help more clients in doing that. Also, comment below. There's going to be agents that will win. Is it $250, Casey? Yep, $250. 4 of them every week, and those are families that need to be protected. So it's our way to say, hey, here's some more families that you go out there and protect as well. And so, guys, let's go out there, crush it, make it a massive month. Let's go out there and heighten awareness for the clients that we sit with. Let's heighten our awareness and how important this is, and go out there and serve more in the month of September. Guys, be strong, stay steadfast. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
going on, everybody? You know what time it is. It is time to give away $250 of leads to 4 lucky people. If you commented on last week's video, which is playing right over here, you're automatically entered to win $250 worth of leads. So comment on this video right now down below so you're entered to win next week's drawing. Without further ado, let's see who our first winner is. Our first winner is Mr. Leon. Great video with lots of gems. Our second winner is John Rapp, a very classy young lady. Our third winner is Daniel Flores, amazing and inspiring. Listen and grow every week. And our fourth winner for this week is Christy Emig. Love listening to Caitlin. Always great advice. Thank you. Guys, it's that simple. Winners, congratulations. Get in contact with Victoria. Her phone number is going to be right over here somewhere. And guys, it's that simple. Just leave a comment, interact, share this with people so they can learn and grow as well. Take care, make it a massive week, and we'll see you next time.